Now this looks very different from previous ASP type information. Notice there's no response rights, there's none of that kind of stuff out here. It's doing that for me in the background as part of the controls. Okay, since I told it the label 1 text needs to be this, then it took care of the response right for me in the background. Now I want to show you one more thing out here in HTML, and we'll talk about these later. This is the beauty of using Visual Studio, which is what we're looking at here. Up here, this in yellow, this @page directive was added for me, and it ties me to the code in the back, or another form that handles all of my logic. And you'll see that is right there. So that's what's happening. So to get a real simple form, a real simple page to show up, let me just go out here and grab it right quick. Notice to get this to show up, really all I had to do was write 2 lines of code. And I've got the action, and I've got the event firing and being handled and so forth. That's as simple as it gets. Okay, from this point on, you're going to see we code pages in ASP.NET much like Visual Basic programmers did in VB6. We lay out our HTML, and we can do that graphically with a design page, and then we code to it on what's called a code behind page, and we code to events and to objects just like always. Now, when we ran this, one last thing I want you to understand, and now at this point you can stop the video if you don't want to go tech on this, but I do want you to understand what happened in the background. When I typed this into my URL and requested it, okay, it sent a request. Well, let me go find my. It sent a request to my browser, and the browser made the request to the web server. The server retrieved the file, realized that it was an ASP.NET file. It compiled the page to MSIL, or Intermediate Language code, and then in the process of doing that, it created some .NET classes that represent that page and that functionality, and it put those out there on my hard disk. Then it rendered the response out to the browser. Now I want to go show you on the hard disk where these things are. So let's explore out, and I want you to see what happened. If I go to WinNT and go to Microsoft.NET, then go to Framework, then the version, this is 10.3705, then notice temporary ASP.NET files. What's the name of my virtual directory that I set up? And we'll talk about how we set that up a little bit later. ASP.NET Video. And notice there are some folders out here. I didn't set these up. I have not a clue what all these numbers are. It assigned them. It's keeping up with them. But this is what it generated. It generated these different programming files out here that causes mine to run. And notice here's Web Form 1. Okay, I'm going to double click this and open it. And notice this is some XML data that tells Visual Studio how to handle this. Now the beauty of this, all this is going on in the background. I didn't have to set this up, but it just does it for me. And then here's some assembly information, and if you've dealt with .NET and you do some reading, you'll find out what an assembly is. If I drill down through here, notice here's some assembly info. Here's an actual DLL that this thing was compiled down into. Now keep in mind in .NET we still have DLLs, we just don't have to register them into the registry anymore. So I hope I didn't go too deep here, but understand .NET's doing some really cool things for you. But all we have to do on web pages now, we don't have to do a lot of intricate HTML coding. Thanks to Visual Studio, we open it up, we lay it out graphically, we program to it just as if we were in an old Visual Basic, object-oriented, dealing with events kind of an environment, and we have built a very interactive web page. So in the next video, I'm going to talk about the .NET framework and try to give you a little more understanding on the framework, how it's set up, how it works, how it's organized, and so forth.